Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Team of the Season type video. This time, it's not the best players of the season, it's the worst. I'm calling it flops of the season just because these players were expected to do much better than they did. It could be based on the fact that they cost so much money and they haven't delivered value for money, if that makes sense. Or it could be just players that have downright performed terribly all season long in the Premier League. This is just Premier League players. I've got a lot of players to get through. And of course, I'll be using my trusty whiteboard again to show you the team as I build it. In goal, this is an absolute no-brainer. And I'm going to do it all in caps so you can read it a bit easier. The first player on the team is Petr Cech. My, where do we start with Petr Cech? This guy should have retired, I'd say 2 seasons ago. Maybe at the end of last season. I think most Arsenal fans will agree that he has been at fault for a lot of our defensive issues. Not all of them, of course not. But if we had a better keeper, we would have definitely been in a better position than we are right now. Purely because, yes, defence, they make mistakes. There's a few Arsenal defenders that really haven't been doing very well this season. But had we had a proper goalkeeper, we may have saved ourselves on a few more occasions. And he said it himself multiple times this season that he hasn't been good enough. So Petr Cech, for me, is an absolute given in flops of the season. And he probably would have made it last year and the year before that as well. Just has not been good enough. And I don't want to go on about it too much. But I'm just going to say that I can't be biased in this video. There's a lot of Arsenal players that have underperformed. But there's also some others from other teams. So don't expect the full Arsenal team. I see you guys. I know what you guys are thinking. Let's go over to right back. Because funnily enough, I can't do him in caps. It won't fit. Let's see if I can. Funnily enough, we are going with an Arsenal player again. We're going with Bellerin at right back because, again, there wasn't too many other options. And I think Bellerin deserves to be on this list because he's got so much promise and so much potential. He doesn't have much competition at the club in that position. And he's not pushing himself this year. There's been a couple of games where I think he's been good. He scored against Bournemouth. That was a good game for him. And a few other performances here and there that I think were okay, but the majority of the games this season, Bellerin has looked subpar. And I'm not saying he is a flop, and I'm not saying he's a bad player, but out of all the right-backs in the Premier League this year that you would expect to do well, he certainly is lower down. And I don't think he's proven to be that great. It's a shame because I think he could be great. I really do. Let's do left-back now. Why not? We're going to go with this player. Now, this, again, is a little bit controversial because I think he's been injured quite a lot, but when fit, still hasn't been able to get in the team, and that is Danny Rose. And I'm not the biggest fan of Danny Rose ever since he scored that wonder strike against Arsenal many seasons ago. But in terms of, for England, you want the best players for the job, and I think Rose probably is, when fit and at the top of his game, the best left-back we have. It's difficult with I mean, you've got Baines, you've got who else? Bertrand, Luke Shaw. Don't think Luke Shaw comes close, which is crazy. He could be in this team, but for me, Danny Rose is the best there. But this season just has not shown how good he can be, and he has to go in this team for that reason, doesn't he? First centre back. I struggled a little bit here. We're going to go with the left-sided one first, which is, if I can squeeze it in there. Don't know if you'll be able to read that, but it's Williams. Now, the reason Williams goes into this team is purely because Everton have been so poor this year, and I think the majority of their issues have been defensively. I think going forward, they've made some great signings. You look at Sigurdsson, who took a little bit of time to really get into the groove, but ultimately has helped them going forward. They've picked up Rooney, who definitely added to their firepower. And they've just signed their new striker, Tosun, I think it is. He's hit the ground running. So I think they're doing okay. Balassi as well. Very good signing. Although he hasn't scored many, when he's played, he has looked very explosive and good. And Theo as well. I mean, Theo Walcott wasn't good enough for Arsenal, and I think he's just about good enough for Everton. So somewhat of a good signing. But defensively, Michael Keane could easily get in this team. I will tell you now that Michael Keane will feature later on in this episode when I have honourable mentions. But him and Ashley Williams was amazing at Swansea. I really thought he was going to be fantastic for Everton, but it just hasn't worked out. Next player. Oh, this is not going to fit. Hang on, I'm just going to readjust this. We are going with Lindelof. It's difficult because he hasn't played many games, and I feel bad for him in a way because there's quite a lot of competition at Manchester United at centre-back. When he has played, he's had 1 or 2 games where, yeah, he's made a mistake and hasn't looked too confident. So therefore, he's kind of thrown out of the team for a while and he doesn't get a chance to build performances. You know, he doesn't get a chance to build that confidence. So it's not really his fault. And I think, you know, he's still a young player. He definitely has got potential to be great, but he's not been given the time. And when he has played well, he's looked pretty good. So he's in this team purely because he hasn't really solidified a position in the team. I think him and Bailly could be a really good partnership for the future. But really, even as an Arsenal fan, I don't think he necessarily deserves to be a flop of the season contender. But there isn't anyone else I could think of, except from maybe Keane. So maybe you go ahead and put Keane in there instead. But Lindelof, I tweeted out who are your flops of the season, and he came up a lot. But anyway, let's move on into midfield. We've got 3 midfielders, so I need to make some space for this. First player is going to be... Is it a Z or an S? I'm going to go with an S. I think it might just be an S. We're going to go with Renato Sanches. Could be a Z. Obvious reason as to why. Big player from the Euros. Played at Bayern for a year. Barely got any game time. Got a loan to Swansea this season. And suddenly he doesn't exist. Where is Renato Sanches? It doesn't make sense how a player with so much promise and so much potential, after showing how good he is for Portugal in the Euros when they won I was going to call it the Europa League, the Euros, but since then he just hasn't proved anything, has he? He's just looked like a really poor player, just really not very good. So he had to go in there as well. He was probably one of the first players that came to my mind when I thought about making this video. So Renato Sanches definitely gets into the team. Next, we're going to go with... I'm going to smudge this because I'm left-handed. I'm going to try and do this neatly. I think you guys know who's coming. It's going to be a CDM, or a centre mid, I guess. Oh, it's so difficult as a lefty. We are going to go with Bakayoko. I was so jealous. Let me think how I'm going to phrase this. We need a CDM at Arsenal, or a centre midfielder that sits back, does a bit of defensive work. And you could argue that Bakayoko isn't entirely a CDM. He does get forward. He's quite good with the ball at his feet, or was at least. And I know Arsene Wenger's been a fan of him for many, many years. I remember when we played Monaco, I think 3 or maybe 4 seasons ago, actually, when he was kind of 18, 19. And I remember in an interview, Wenger said Bakayoko is going to be brilliant, and we're looking at him. When he signed for Chelsea, and it wasn't a very expensive deal for what we thought was a great player, I was so angry that we weren't going for him. You know, why? Why weren't we going for a player that fits Arsenal so well? He's that French beast that would sit in midfield. He's gone to Chelsea, fair enough. Him and Kante, they will win the Premier League, no doubt about it. But my God, he defines flop of the season. Chelsea fans, I feel bad for you. You got scammed. This guy, I don't even think he's got the potential to be that good. In one season, he's completely changed my mind, which is mind-blowing. He has been so poor for Chelsea. Very, very, very bad signing. And it's a shame because I kind of want him to be good to prove that I was right to be jealous, you know. But turns out we dodged a bullet with that one. Up next, another Everton player. I'm running out of ink here. I'm pretty sure this is how you spell it. 2 A's and 2 S's. Maybe not, but you guys can correct me. It is Klaassen. That one. Klaassen signed for quite a lot of money. I think it was £24 million. And he's been one of those players that he's played in the Netherlands for a long, long time and never made that jump. He looked like he could make that jump to a big club and really go on to great things. He's joined Everton. Sounded like a great fit. It looked like they needed a Klaassen type player, but flopped. Completely flopped. And there's no doubt in my mind that Everton would have regretted that deal pretty much straight away because he hasn't shown any quality whatsoever for the Premier League. And it wouldn't surprise me if they offload him in the summer. And I don't know who would buy him. Maybe he'll go back to Holland. Maybe. But I don't think he deserves to be in a Premier League club of Everton's stature. They're a massive club. They really are. And he just hasn't been good enough. He really hasn't. So Klaassen definitely gets into this team. Now I'm going to move from the right side to the left so I don't smudge. 3 strikers. Although I'm playing in a 4-3-3 here, or building a 4-3-3, we're going with 3 strikers. There's no wingers. So the first one, I'm going to get this one out of the way because I know people are probably going to be angry at me for this. But actually, I wasn't going to do this. I was not going to put this player in the team until you guys tweeted me. I had a lot of Chelsea fans mention this guy, and that is Morata. I don't think he has been a flop. I think Morata's been poor, given his quality as a player that we've seen already, given the price that they've paid. But he's had a dip in form, but just recently he started to score again. He scored against Tottenham, which I thought was a little bit lucky that Lloris didn't quite connect with the punch. But he has scored goals this season. He's into double figures now. By no means does that mean he's a flop. You know, he's gone from Spain to Italy, doing very well in both countries. He's now come to the Premier League. Hasn't quite hit it off yet, but we're so early on into his Premier League career. Apparently Bayern are interested in replacing Lewandowski with him, should Lewandowski go. That means a lot. You know, Morata he's highly renowned by a lot of big clubs, and I think he will come good for Chelsea. In the air, there isn't much better. I believe that Morata hasn't been a complete flop. He's been poor, but he's not a write-off. There's plenty of time for Morata to get better, but I guess he does get into this team. He does really, doesn't he? Because of that massive wait in between his first few games where he was actually doing very well until now, just not doing well enough at all. So Morata gets into this team. We are then going to go with this guy up front, who I think has been one of the most disappointing strikers in the last 5 years. He started at Swansea, Bonnie, started really well, and Man City were like, holy crap, we need him. We need to sign this guy. And everyone thought he was going to be a great at Man City, that he was going to be banging in 30 a season with Aguero next to him. What happened? I have no idea. He scored a couple at City, but now he's back at Swansea, and he looks like a championship player. He's absolutely terrible. He's so slow. He isn't as powerful as he looked before. He's low on confidence. He's playing in a dead team. I mean, Swansea, I love Swansea as a club. I really don't want them to get relegated ever again. I would love to keep them in the Premier League. But when you've got a striker like Bonnie with his quality, underperforming week in, week out, with other players like Sanches in the team that should be doing better, pulling their weight, they're shocking though. They're just not doing their job for the team. So Bonnie 100% gets in this team. And we have one slot left. And again, this is another tough one that maybe some people will agree with and some people won't. Because when you're playing in such a terrible team, it's difficult to do your job as a striker, and that is going to be Benteke. There's a look at the team, by the way, if you are interested. Benteke, I think he's been one of those inconsistent players over the years. I remember when he was at Aston Villa, and he was the new big thing, wasn't he? Arsenal almost signed him, apparently. He was looked at by Chelsea. I think Man United looked at him. And it wouldn't surprise me if other clubs around the world, such as Bayern, Madrid, PSG, Barcelona, were looking at him when he was breaking through into that Aston Villa team, because there wasn't many strikers like him. He's not only a massive guy, really strong in the air, he's very technical, or he was at least, very technical with his feet. He was scoring for fun at Aston Villa. I remember him scoring at the Emirates, our first game of the season. He destroyed our defence. Then he got a big move to Liverpool, didn't work out. Then he got another move to Crystal Palace, hasn't worked out. And I remember at the very same time when he was breaking through, so was Lukaku. Both Belgium, both very similar physically, both strikers, both playing in the same position, both playing very similar roles. And everyone thought that they would kind of be at it, you know, fighting for that position in Belgium, or the best Belgian striker. And at that point, I would say Lukaku was here, and Benteke was up there. He was getting into the Belgian team over Lukaku. Lukaku was kind of in a tough place. Left Chelsea, or got sold by Chelsea. Was at West Brom on loan. You know, he's moved from Everton to Manchester United, but now Benteke's here. He was here. He's come down, and Lukaku's just gone straight up. He's now at Man United. I'd say he's hovering down a little bit. But still a quality player. What's happened to Benteke? I don't know. He could probably be in this team every year for a couple of seasons now. Just really, really not good enough. But that's the team. One last look before I wipe it off. It's actually not a bad team if you think about it. If all of these players play to their best ability, I wouldn't mind having that going into a Premier League season. I bet a lot of other clubs would be happy with that as well. And now we're going to do the honourable mentions. So I've got, how many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players. We're going to do it all in one go. So these are the honourable mentions. We've got Michael Keane, Lacazette, Hart, Drink Vodka, Sturridge and Hesse. These 6 players, let's talk about them in order. So Keane, I thought, when he was at Manchester United, he wasn't given the chance. He's moved over to Burnley, did really well there. Looked like, a solid player for England in the future and still looks to be very good for the future. Got a big move to Everton. They were rebuilding, very exciting. Yeah, let's go to Everton. I'll break into the England team, break into Everton's first team, get a big move to a bigger club in the near future. No. He has looked terrible this season. There's been an odd few games where you think, okay, he could be good, but unfortunately for Keane, it hasn't worked well, that move, has it? Lacazette, it's difficult. I'm putting him in the team because for that money that we paid, breaking our record fee, he hasn't quite cut it. Obviously, he's picked up the injury recently. He's been out for a couple of weeks, almost 2 months, I think it was. But even so, he has scored quite a few goals for us. But the lack of confidence and, in general, just lack of performances, I think he has been a poor signing for Arsenal so far. You saw at the weekend, as soon as he came on and partnered up with Aubameyang, looked good. So maybe there's a potential to partner them up there. Joe Hart, that's self-explanatory, just hasn't been able to solidify a place at West Ham. And if you can't even get into West Ham's team at the moment, they're just above the relegation zone, you're clearly not doing very well for a England international. Drinkwater, big move from Leicester to Chelsea. Looks like Chelsea were like, what caused Leicester to win the league? Drinkwater and Kante. Let's sign both of them. Except from Mahrez, they've basically stolen that team, but just hasn't done very well at Chelsea. Even when he has played, just doesn't look Chelsea quality, does he? Sturridge, I think there's a stat out there. It's a ridiculous stat, something like £600,000 per minute played, or just something stupid like that. That seems a bit excessive. Maybe it was £60,000 per minute played. Unbelievable stat. Just nowhere near as good as he used to be. Injuries, I guess that's just the way it is. And Hesse, I remember Arsenal played Stoke at the start of the season. We lost to a Hesse goal. And I thought, wow, he actually could be really good. I remember at Real Madrid, he looked like the next big thing. Didn't quite work out there. Went on loan to PSG. Barely got any game time. Ends up at Stoke somehow. They're really good at signing these young, or actually not so young, but almost rejects from Champions League winning teams. He turns up, has a blinding start against Arsenal, and then maybe he got injured. I don't know, but somehow just hasn't done anything since then. So that's this video. Flops of the season. Let me know your thoughts below. Just remember, this is mainly my opinion. A lot of your feedback on Twitter as well. So make sure you follow me on Twitter. I'm going to be doing more of these videos. I'm going to do Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A. I'm going to do a few other things as well, maybe. So just keep tuned in on the channel. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell, and I will see you next time.